Hey, today we are going to model a hexapod, where we will use a lot of array mesh, Zremesher, Booleans, Bevel Pro, and tackle some problems along the way. Before we start, I want to inform you about my free beginner hard surface course for Zbrush. In this course, I will guide you through the Zbrush UI and introduce you to the main tools we are going to use. We'll start with a warm-up exercise to practice the necessary workflows, and then we'll dive right into creating a VR headset step by step. So if you're just starting out or want to have a more detailed explanation of my workflows, this course is perfect for you. You can access the course through the link in the description. Okay, let's start by setting up a cylinder. Let's rotate it by 90 degrees by holding down the Shift key. Let's activate symmetry as well as Y symmetry. I'm going to switch to my Z-modeler brush BZM, hold down the Alt key and paint in a new polygroup. Qmesh, polygroup all, let's Qmesh that up. Mask the upper portion and just scale it down, but for that activate local symmetry. Invert the mask. Going to center my gizmo. Scale this up. Okay, let's repeat that step. Let's do a groups by normals. And maybe change this to 20, 30. That looks good. And now we can do a crease polygroups. And now if I'm activating dynamic subdivision, let's turn this up. I can start playing with the crease level. Awesome. For the next part, I'm going to duplicate that piece. And let's deactivate symmetry for now and move this up. Let's deactivate dynamics for now. And I'm going to delete this upper part, delete hidden, switch to the Z-modeler brush, activate double, hover over an edge, and let's choose close, convex holes. Let's switch to our IMM primitives brush and choose the cylinder extended. Rotate that by 90 degrees, center the gizmo before that, and just roughly place that in the middle. Control click in the canvas to invert the mask, and now I'm doing a split mask operation. I'm also going to hit groups by normals and crease polygroups, and now crank up the subdivision. I'm also going to use my knife curve and just clip away that lower section. And I'm just going to repeat that step, crease polygroups, and now I've got a clean mesh once again. To make that even cleaner, because we got some artifacts here, you can go out of dynamics and just do a quick Zremesh with keep groups. Turn off smooth groups and hit Zremesh. Let's do a quick mirror and weld as well. Crease polygroups and dynamics. Okay. Let's do the same thing here. Crease polygroups and dynamics. Let's crank up the crease level for now. To cut away the curvature of the cylinder from the shape we just put in, I'm simply going to duplicate this part, and I'm going out of dynamics for now. I'm just going to grab this poly loop right here, delete hidden, and now I can scale this up. Give this a few more subdivisions. For that, I'm going to insert multiple edge loops, polygroups, and let's just turn this up. go into dynamics, and what I want to do is turn on thickness in 100% offset and turn on subtraction on that with live Boolean. So now this piece is sitting perfectly flat on that curvature of the cylinder underneath. To create a nice curvature on this edge, I'm simply going to duplicate this piece right here, center my gizmo on the side of this part. So I'm alt-clicking on this vertex right here, and now I can rotate around these axes. Let's do a rotation by 180 degrees. Put this down in our list and activate subtraction. And now I got a perfect curvature around this plane. Let's do a weld in the Z direction. Awesome. And activate symmetry in the Z axis with local symmetry. Let's move this piece down. So we have something like that, and create an inset for the corresponding piece. I think for that I'm again reusing this part, rotate it by 90 degrees, move it up, squish it down, put it to the bottom of our list, activate subtraction, and let's also put in a cylinder. So I'm going to append, look for cylinder, and let's put this up right here. I'm just going to scale this up to get a better understanding of how this fits into this curvature. And now I'm just going to scale this down slightly. And also adjust this inset so the cylinder sits nicely inside. Let's do a groups by normals, increase polygroups, dynamics. Duplicate that part, move it up, subtraction, and let's scale this up. Great. And now we can move to the corresponding piece. Let's first activate the gizmo, select all of these pieces and create a new folder. Let's call this part 1. For the corresponding part of this hinge, I'm again going to reuse this part right here, duplicate that and move it out of this folder. Let's recenter our gizmo, rotate by 180 degrees. And let's scale that in the x-axis so it fits within the cylinder. Let's do a mirror and weld in the x-axis. And let's also grab those two, duplicate them, and move it underneath this new piece. Activate subtraction. Turn off symmetry for now. Let's center our gizmo and rotate that by 90 degrees in the vert axis. Let's move them down, activate X symmetry. Let's do a weld, mirror and weld in the X as well to recenter everything. And now I can move those in. And take this part and move it in place as well. Let's make this inner portion a little bit thicker. So I'm going to move those out and switch to this part right here and also make that thicker. So that looks a little bit more stable. Okay, I'm happy with that. And now I would like to create some thicker chamfers on this piece right here. And for that, I'm going to make use of the bevel brush. Press B and B again for the bevel arc. And so with this brush, you can click between two surfaces around an edge and just clip away that edge like so. I would highly suggest that you go into your brush settings for this brush and go to the Z intensity and put this all the way to the top. So after you've done that, let's activate symmetry in the X and Z direction and bevel this edge. Make sure you go over this a couple of times. So we are getting this artifact right now because we have creasing activated. So I don't want to have a poly group around this anymore. So I'm simply going to do another group by normals and another Zremesh with keep groups. And now I can activate creased polygroups again and hit dynamics. Alright, let's put these two pieces into one folder and call it part 2. And hit Boolean with subdivision to accept the Boolean. Now with this piece, let's activate the X and Z symmetry to tell Zremesher that this mesh is symmetrical in both of these axes. Let's also turn on keep groups as further orientation for Zremesher, turn off smooth groups, and detect edges, which works really well for Zremesher to understand these 90-degree angles and sharp corners. And a target number of 5k is okay. So let's hit Zremesher and let's do another Zremesher by half. Cool. So if our mesh has slight deformations, we can go back in history, click in this time of history, go all the way back, and then hit project history to get our previous shape back. And now we can turn on dynamics again. And because detect edges was turned on, we sort of have a creasing effect on our edges, so we can go down with our creasing effect, with our creasing level. And now we have an amazing clean geometry. Let's repeat those steps for this upper part. First of all, I'm going to click this arrow right here to tell Zbrush that this part will be an external part. So now if I hit Boolean with subdivision, this part is now separated. So let's look at this right here. I'm going to turn off line for now. And now we have to get our polygroup straight for Zremesher to work best. So for that, I'm thinking a group by normals with 15. Okay, this seems to be the right setting. Now I'm doing the same thing as before. I'm going to turn on X symmetry and Z symmetry. Go to Zremesher, activate keep groups, turn off smooth groups, detect edges, target poly count of, let's put in 10k for now, and hit Zremesh. Let's turn on line. And now we got some weird artifacts, so I'm simply going to hit retry. And if retry doesn't work, just do another Zremesher with same. And let's try another with half. And that usually resolves these issues. Let's go back in history again and reproject our mesh that we have and activate dynamic and go down with our creasing level. Let's have a look at the cylinder. I'm simply going to center my gizmo and choosing a cylinder 3D, rotate it by 90 degrees, so that we have a clean cylinder setup here. Because our geometry got slightly destroyed by the Boolean operation, so instead of using Zremesher, I'm just using another primitive. I'm going to switch to my C modeler brush, hover over this edge loop, activate bevel, edge loop complete. Now I'm switching to insert, multiple edge loops, keep groups, give this some supporting edge loops. And hit dynamics. And also do a mirror and weld in the x-axis. Let's turn up dynamics here. Let's further adjust this middle part right here. I'm going to scale this up until the cylinder is kind of in line with this one. And move this slightly down. Grab this part right here. And also move this down. And now what we can do is create a new folder. Let's call this hinge. Put these pieces in and hit merge folder. Since they are all zero-meshed, we can simply use the same settings for them. So increase level of 1, and let's pump up the dynamics. Duplicate that by Ctrl-Shift-D and rotate that by 180 degrees. Let's make this part a little bit more interesting and create some insets around the cylinder for bolts. Just going to move this down in my subtool list and append a sphere. I'm going to select that sphere, activate my gizmo, and also switch to my IMM primitive brush and select the cylinder extended. I'm going to scale this up, rotate by 90 degrees. Let's move this out. Scale this slightly. Now let's go into Array Mesh. Activate it, hit lock position, reset. Then go to the rotate section and insert 360 into the wire mount. And let's put in 8 for the repeat. Let's go back to our subtool. Put those two pieces into one folder and activate subtraction with live Boolean. Let's slightly squish this extended cylinder for a more pleasing curvature. Something like this maybe. And now for the bolts, I'm simply going to take the cylinder no edges, go in here, invert my masking, split mask, put this down, activate this start arrow. So this is going to be an additional piece. Move this up and scale it so it fits nicely into this inset. Let's quickly adjust this further. Let's paint in a new polygroup. Choose Inset, Polygroup All. And go to Extrude, Polygroup All. Let's extrude it upwards. Insert multiple edge loops. Just give this a few supporting edge loops. And then hit Increase Polygroups. Let's switch this to like increase level of 2 for now, and activate dynamic. Let's choose 1 and crank up the smoothing level. Now let's have a look at this piece. I need a separate polygroup here because I want to use Bevel Pro afterwards. So I'm going to hit group by normals, crease polygroups, and hit dynamic subdivision. And this can get one single polygroup. And now I'm ready to hit Boolean with subdivision. Let's turn off live Boolean and have a look at this geometry. Okay, let's go into Bevel Pro. Now that we are into Bevel Pro, let's hit reset, change to chamfer. Let's hit auto apply, turn on low poly mode, and also turn off generate inner part. That usually gives the most cleanest result. And let's maybe put a 0.2 in the bevel amount. Great, that looks really nice. Let's hit OK. Let's now jump into array mesh. Hit array mesh, lock position, reset, and mirror X. And now we can move this to the side. Now hit append new, reset, go into the rotation tab, put in 360 into the Y amount, as well as in the repeat we put in 3. And now we can push this outwards and rotate by 90 degrees. So these two edges are parallel to each other. Let's create the mounts for the top and bottom of the hexapod. For that, I'm going to append a cylinder. Let's scale this up. I'm only grabbing the top and the bottom of the cylinder. Hit delete hidden. Turn on dynamic thickness. And let's move them in place. Let's hit apply, crease polygroups, and turn on dynamics. And turn off the thickness here. Turn on smooth subdivisions. And let's now append a cube. Rotate by 20 degrees. Push this outwards. Scale it. Put this in a folder with the platforms. Call this mounts. And turn on subtraction and live Boolean. If you get this weird clipping effect while using live Boolean, it's due to the reason that we are still having array mesh activated on those hydraulics. So I'm going to select the hydraulics, go back into array mesh. And now in order to confirm the array mesh, we first have to go into stage 1, because remember we did first an array mesh as a mirror and then appended another array mesh where we replicated the hydraulics in a rotation. So therefore we first have to go into transform stage 1, hit make mesh, also make sure that extrude is off, and now hit make mesh once more. And now we can jump back to this and we can continue to work with live Boolean without having this weird clipping issue. So let's continue here. With this cube activated, I'm going to once again activate array mesh, lock position, reset, go into rotate, Y amount of 360 and repeat of 3. And now I'm going to duplicate those, center my gizmo, move them up, put them in this folder, turn on subtraction, and rotate them by 60 degrees. And to get a nice transition with the sockets of the hydraulics, I'm going to use my select rectangle to hide a portion of the upper and lower sockets of this hydraulics. Then invert the selection and press Ctrl-Shift-A to bring back the rest of the selected geometry. And now I am going to press Alt-S. That is for me split hidden or split masked. And now I can press reconstruct subdivision on these pieces, because the subdivision was baked previously for the array mesh operation. Awesome, now I can delete the higher subdivision and activate dynamic again. And now I would like to do 2 Boolean operations. So first I'm going to Boolean the top and lower mount and simply do a Zremesh with keep groups and smooth groups off. Turn on crease polygroups, dynamics, until we get a nice result like that. Create a new folder, let's do this Boolean for now. Put these sockets in, and let's turn off crease level here, so we get a nice bevel. They have one polygroup, which is good. Give this one polygroup as well. And to make it more interesting, let's append a sphere, scale this up, group by normals, crease polygroups, turn on dynamics, make this nice and smooth. Put this into the group, turn on subtraction. Let's commit to that Boolean as well and jump into Bevel Pro one last time to chamfer those sharp edges. Let's turn off Live Boolean, jump into Bevel Pro. Let's turn on Auto Apply, go to Advanced, turn off Generate Inner Part because this is giving some issues sometimes. Great, and that's it, okay. And now we are done with our basic Hexapod. So if you want more insights of my workflows or want to get a better understanding of Zbrush, look at my free beginner hard surface course, which I designed to be easy to follow as a beginner. You can find the link in the description. Until then guys, take care.